let's take a quick look at Batwoman miniseries To Drown the World. This is a hardback copy that I picked up completely out of whim, because I fell in love pretty much instantly with the inner conflict of the protagonist, which are indeed also the main conflict in between every superhero, the dichotomy between evil and good, and the conflicts, the contrasts, and the personal issues going on in the psyche of the main character. The many conflicts that make her who she is. It's a play on contrast, and it works so well in presenting this main character. Not only that, but you can see also the vibrant blood red color of her hair and the inside of her cape. The red, which is both a symbol of femininity and a symbol of rage. Already, just looking at the color schemes of this character, it tells an interesting story in its own right. It tells the story of an interesting character in its own right. But when you actually get to see the backstory of Betty Kane, yeah, see what they did there, because Bob Kane is the original creator of Batman, so yeah, they did that. Betty Kane, in which oh, sorry, I meant to say Kate Kane. Betty is the name of her cousin whom is currently dying in the hospital bed. More on that later. So the story here is that she had an accident with her family in which supposedly both her mother and her twin sister died. Her twin sister did not die and return as an enemy later on, because they always do. And she has only her father left, who is a military. She following the footsteps of her father, and then she was basically released from military duty once they discovered she was lesbian. So she is basically a full-fledged, strong female lesbian superheroine that's both fighting against crime and social injustice in a way or the other. I was already sold on this comic once I saw the cover. Once I read that backstory, my soul was set to buy this. You can understand why. Now, the narrative here is that Batwoman is fighting off an evil organization called Medusa, coming from the east, and the goal of Medusa is apparently to use the fears of the citizens of Gotham City as a magical fuel to turn actual people into the urban legends and monsters of mythologies and folklore that are feared by many. And a perfect example of that, let me provide you a perfect example of that. We have, if I can find that is. Oh, and by the way, look at this artwork. Look at it. Just look at it. It's really good. It's really good. So there is a character named Bloody Mary, and it is the actual Bloody Mary of Legends, the one you put yourself in front of a mirror to call out 3 times, and then she comes to steal your face. She is an actual employee of this evil organization, made specifically for their purposes. That's fascinating. That's really an interesting concept for a villain. In this scene, Batwoman is fighting against the guy with the hook instead of a hand. It comes from the urban legend of the killer with the hook instead of a hand. You know the one about the loose killer, then whose hook became attached to the car that was fleeing away, and yeah, you probably know the legend better than me, so but it comes from that legend. So really, an interesting idea for an interesting concept for a set of villains and an evil organization to fight, especially for Batwoman, which, oh, here it is. Here, you can see her right here. This is Bloody Mary, and this huge fella here is actually Killer Croc, after the treatment that turned him into an even uglier crocodile monster. So there's that. Now, oh, and here you can see Kate having dinner with her girlfriend, whom is a police detective. She has a good relationship with her, except that we are in the usual predicament in which the detective is actually hunting the vigilante, and she doesn't know who the vigilante is. When she will eventually find out, because she will eventually, the relationship might suffer a bit. Now, let me talk finally about how the story is told, because there is an interesting narrative device. You can see here, well, you can probably not read it because it's in Italian. It says basically the story of Kate 1 week ago. You can already, surmise how this story works. It goes back and forth in between events in time from the point of view of the various characters involved in the story as a whole. The present time being the climax with the current Medusa commander, and his minions, and it mostly goes back in time to other points in the story in which we discover how these characters are preparing for the climax, and also the side story including Kate's father staying on the hospital bed of Betty, which is Kate's cousin, and hoping against hope she would wake up, which is a moving story in its own right. And it's really interesting, especially... here's a better picture of Bloody Mary. Ain't she a treasure? Yes. Anyway, so that's how the story works. We go back and forth in time in between moments in the story from the point of view of various characters, as I pointed out before. It's really interesting, and it makes for very amusing plot twists when the way the story builds itself and it narrates itself. It's a nice narrative device, to say the very least. Now, on to small issues that I had with while reading this comic. I do enjoy the fact that the pattern of the sequentiality of the various vignettes somehow follows the story pattern, as in they are put sequentially in a way describes the story, not only the story, but also the environment in which the story is taking place. Let me give you an example of one of the most extreme examples. At this point in the story, we are shrouded in literal darkness because of probably some sort of magical technological device that some organization called DEO gave the main characters. So they are currently shrouded in darkness. As you can see, the pattern of the sequential vignettes changes significantly, assuming a distorted and almost unrecognizable shape, which is really interesting, and again, it helps you immerse in the environment in which the story is taking place right now, in the atmosphere of the story. The problem with that is when it goes a bit overboard and it becomes kind of difficult to follow the proper order, or to follow at all. For example, in here, I thought the order was supposed to be like this. Instead, you're supposed to do it like this, like some sort of a snake that twirls and twists, and it gets a bit confusing at times. At least for me, and I must admit I've been a bit spoiled by manga, which manga tend to be far more obvious in their pattern. Now, I'll give you a more glaring example of this style going a bit too far. Again, once I found it, I cannot remember the proper order here. Now, there is this scene in which you are on a cruise ship, and here it is. So we are in a cruise ship, okay? It's some sort of a party. Okay, you can see these vignettes going... These vignettes, interesting enough, they are supposed to follow the same pattern of the this descending staircase that you see here. So it's supposed to be it's supposed to be followed from here to here in this descending pattern. I didn't get that at first because I'm used to read things from left to right in Western comics, that is. So I was a bit disgruntled by this choice, which I understood as a choice. It is interesting, following the pattern of the vignettes, following the direction of the descending staircase. It's clever. It's a clever way to place this sequential story bits, but it might be too experimental for its own good at times. It gets in the way of you actually following the story. But that's really a minor complaint, because overall, this is a pretty good comic with an interesting story and interesting characters and an interesting villains and setting and all that. It's really intriguing, and by the end of this miniseries, you're left with wanting more of it, which is the best thing this kind of comics can ask you for. So again, with all the negativity that the new 52 of DC Comics get nowadays, I'd say they have one saving grace, and that saving grace is Woman Batman, which by now I think she's actually better than regular Batman. Well, at least as DC is now. So, and again, look at this color scheme. It's so gracious. Anyway, this was me taking a quick look at Batwoman to drown the world. You know who you are, and so if you like this sort of comics, but you're not confident with the new 52, then I can guarantee you that Batwoman is actually worth reading. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you for joining me, I should say. There is no one else here, aside from the voices in my head. I'll be seeing you next time. Maybe, since I have a comic book reviewing show, I should actually do some regular scripted comic book reviews. Maybe I'll do that next time I'm on the paper pit. I'm no longer here.